What would happen if Marvel and DC collided? Hey, guys, welcome to the channel. You know how all those superheroes and supervillains always seem to find their way into the same team, usually when it's time for an epic battle? Well, imagine a scenario where they don't just team up, but actually switch places. How crazy would that be? In this video, we're diving into a world where Marvel and DC collide, where the lines between good and evil get blurred, and where heroes and villains swap sides. Buckle up, because things are about to get seriously epic. So let's start with Superman. This Man of Steel is not just powerful, he's practically a god in terms of strength. Now picture him swapping places with Thanos. Imagine Thanos waking up one morning as Superman and suddenly finding himself protecting Metropolis, or maybe ruling over it like the godlike ruler of Attilan. It'd be a pretty drastic change of pace for both of them. Superman would probably struggle initially, but given his noble and self-sacrificing nature, he might ultimately decide to embrace this new mission. He could find himself protecting Midgard from intergalactic threats like the Chitauri army from the Avengers, or perhaps he'd even team up with Thor to take on Hela in Hela's realm. And who knows, maybe with some cosmic intervention, Thanos could wake up as Superman, but with all the memories and experience of being the Mad Titan. That'd make for one superpowered Superman, huh? But what about Thanos as Superman? Well, first off, no more Infinity Stones, right? Those are kind of his thing, so maybe he'd be a bit less powerful. But with his intellect, strategy, and sheer determination, Thanos could still wreak havoc in the DC universe. Can you imagine Thanos trying to wipe out half of the universe but with a kryptonite weakness? That'd be hilarious and terrifying at the same time. Or maybe Lex Luthor ends up as Superman instead. That'd be quite the predicament. Next, let's shift gears to Iron Man. This genius billionaire playboy philanthropist has saved the day many times, but what if Tony Stark found himself suddenly inhabiting the body of, say, the Joker? It'd be a bizarre twist of fate, but also a pretty funny one. Can you imagine Tony trying to crack wise while dressed as the Joker? Or maybe the Joker trying to build new suits and tech in Stark Tower? Either way, it'd be a comedy of errors mixed with some serious action. And then there's Bruce Wayne becoming Iron Man. Now, that'd be a fascinating role reversal. Bruce is already a skilled engineer and a strategist, so he'd likely excel at building and using Iron Man suits. Plus, he's got that whole brooding billionaire thing down pat. It'd be interesting to see him balance the Iron Man suits with his existing Batman gadgets and fighting style. Now, let's talk about Captain America. What if this patriotic super soldier found himself as the nefarious warlord Darkseid? Talk about a jarring transition. Steve Rogers was all about saving people and protecting the innocent. Darkseid, on the other hand, wanted nothing more than power and control. It'd be like if Mother Teresa suddenly became Lady Gaga and took over the Catholic Church. It'd be so out of character that it'd be comical. Just picture Darkseid trying to rally the troops by saying, "Fools, do you not know that I am your father?" It'd be a total subversion of expectations and utterly hilarious. And then there's Darkseid becoming Captain America. That'd be like turning Walter White into a Boy Scout. It wouldn't work. Darkseid has such a strong desire for power and control that it would completely clash with everything Steve Rogers stands for. Imagine Darkseid leading the Avengers, though. That'd be quite the scary thought. Okay, now let's focus on the Hulk. What if this big green rage monster ended up as the Flash? It'd be a complete personality transplant, but with the Hulk possessing superhuman speed. That'd be a force to be reckoned with. Imagine the Hulk zooming around at near-light speed while smashing everything in sight. It'd be like an unstoppable green blur. And then there's Barry Allen going from the Flash to the Incredible Hulk. It'd be interesting to see how Barry's scientific mind would try to analyze and understand the Hulk's transformations and powers. Maybe he'd find a way to weaponize them. Or maybe the Hulk would just end up smashing Barry's lab while yelling, "Hulk, smash!" Which brings us to Thor. If the god of thunder got switched with Aquaman, we'd see a lot of confusion. Thor would likely struggle to understand and control water powers, leaving him stranded on land until he figured it out. Meanwhile, Arthur Curry would find himself wielding Mjolnir and maybe even leading the Atlanteans alongside Namor. Now, that'd be a wild ride. And then there's Loki switching places with Shazam. Imagine the god of mischief suddenly becoming the youthful champion of the gods. It'd be amusing, but Loki's mischievous and manipulative nature might end up causing some serious trouble in Shazam's universe. I mean, can you picture Loki pulling pranks on the Olympians with Zeus's thunderbolts? Pure chaos. And then Shazam, who's known for his wisdom and leadership, would probably struggle with Loki's schemes and trickery. Next up, Black Widow. What if this highly trained spy and assassin ended up as Green Lantern? Talk about a career change. Natasha Romanoff was skilled in deception, infiltration, and combat, but wielding a power ring would require a whole new set of skills. And then there's Hal Jordan, the snarky and sometimes cocky Green Lantern, becoming Black Widow. That'd be an interesting role reversal. Hal would have to learn the art of espionage and hand-to-hand combat, which might not be his strongest suit. Imagine him trying to infiltrate SHBELD or the Avengers. It'd be a very different kind of challenge for him. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about Deadpool. What if this merc with a mouth found himself as the dark and brooding Batman? Oh, the quips and retorts he'd throw out during crime fighting would be legendary. Picture Deadpool in the Batmobile delivering one-liners while fighting crime in Gotham. It'd be like if Ryan Reynolds was cast as Batman. And then there's Bruce Wayne suddenly becoming Deadpool. Talk about a jarring transition. It'd be like if Chuck Norris started breaking the fourth wall and making jokes at the audience. We've seen Bruce struggle with multiple personalities as Batman and as Bane in the comics, so maybe he'd handle it better than others, but it'd still be pretty weird. Finally, Spider-Man. What if Peter Parker found himself as, say, Doomsday? Talk about a massive change in scale. Spider-Man was known for his agility, wit, and web-slinging abilities. Doomsday, on the other hand, was a brutal, unstoppable killing machine. It'd be like if a cute little squirrel suddenly became a raging forest fire. And then there's Clark Kent becoming Spider-Man. Now, that'd be a humbling experience for Superman. Imagine Clark having to deal with Uncle Ben's death, Aunt May's nagging, and trying to balance superhero life with high school. It'd be a very different kind of challenge for him. And we've already seen how Clark handles mild-mannered alter egos. So I think he'd do fine. So there you have it. A glimpse into a world where Marvel and DC collide and where the roles are hilariously reversed. It's a fun way to look at these iconic characters and what would happen if they were suddenly thrust into completely different universes. But let me know, which character swap surprised you the most or made you laugh out loud? Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more crazy theories and pop culture fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, keep questioning the multiverse and stay awesome.